Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today we're going to go on a pretty dismal tomato harvest. Now, I've done other videos this year, so this is 2024, a year where we've had a really hard time with tomatoes. But I've done videos before on what the issues are with my tomatoes and what they look like. The last one I did, I think, was early September, near the end of August, and now it's the third week in September, and we still have very, very few tomatoes. I did get about 20 pounds, maybe it was 24 pounds. It was enough to make 2 batches of salsa in June. And then I really haven't had much of anything since. But I have seen a few tomatoes start to ripen, and we're going to see how many we can get. And then I'm going to make some marinara sauce if I get enough. Now, I'm not going to do a canning video. I don't generally do cooking videos on my channel. I've done a couple of them, but my kitchen really isn't set up to film. And it's just not something that I like to do. But if you go on to Acre Homestead with Becky, it's one of my favorite YouTube channels, she did a video where she canned the same marinara sauce that I'm going to can today. So if you'd like to go over to Acre Homestead, I'll link her video above. Now, I'm really anxious to see how much I actually get out of here. I need 20 pounds for a full batch of marinara sauce. We'll see if we get anywhere close to that. I don't think we will, but we're going to try. So before I start the harvest, let's go through and kind of tell you which tomatoes I'm growing. Now, normally I keep my tomatoes pruned to a single stem, but this year, because of the temperatures, I really think it was how hot it was. We were over 100 degrees, and this side of the house was consistently around 126 midday, every day for weeks and weeks. And what happens with the flowers on tomatoes, if you go above 90 degrees, is they abort and fall off. Now, the temperatures in September have been a lot more amenable to growing tomatoes, and so we've got a ton of tomatoes on the plants. Now, if I lived in a warmer climate, I would say, yay, we're going to get a good harvest of tomatoes this year despite the weather. But I live in Utah, and we are about a week to 2 weeks away from our first hard frost. Now, tomatoes this size are definitely not going to have time to ripen. But there are a few larger ones. I'm going to actually turn my water off to this area so that they can have the signal to ripen a little quicker and see if we can get more to ripen. But to be honest, I actually gave up on tomatoes for this year, and I went and bought a year's supply of canned tomatoes because I don't eat a lot of them, and tomato sauce, which I also don't eat a lot of. The thing that I'm going to miss the most, though, is homemade tomato soup. But I'd like to try the marinara sauce, so if we get enough, that's what we'll be doing. So this first tomato right here, it's an orange tomato. It's a little larger. On the package, it said it was a sun sugar. I don't believe it. It doesn't look like sun sugar. It's too big, and it doesn't have that great flavor. But it's good to add bulk to my sauces because it is a tomato, and it does have a decent flavor. So we're going to be picking all of these. I'm going to have probably more of these than the other ones. And let's show you what else we have. Next, unfortunately, we have this split one. We'll probably cut the bad part out because we're just going to make sauce. But this is an Amish paste, and I absolutely love Amish paste for the flavor, for the size, and for the cannability. Now, these splits are usually caused by an influx of water after you've had a drought. And that's exactly what happened about, I think it was the beginning of this week. We had almost an inch of rain. And that's what happened. Now, this is my dwarf tomato. It's an Adelaide Festival. It's absolutely gorgeous when it's ripe. And we do have a couple more tomatoes on this. I doubt they're going to have time to ripen. But hopefully once we cut the water off, they will ripen. They are almost full size. Absolutely delicious tomato. Now, it looks like we have more Amish paste through here. But another one that we have is... Let's get deep into here. This is a small one with a little bit of blossom end drop at the bottom of it. But this is a San Marzano. San Marzanos are susceptible to blossom end rot, but when I'm making paste, I'll just cut that off and use the rest of it. So this is my paste tomato bed with one cherry tomato in it. And then this bed over here had quite a few cherry tomatoes that they go through periods of producing and then periods of not producing. But I absolutely love these. These are gorgeous and tasty. This one's split and is rotting now. This is an indigo kumquat. It's absolutely a delicious tomato, and it's very beautiful. The other cherry that we have in here that's ripening is the GMO Purple Tomato by Norfolk Industries, and it's got a gorgeous purple color in it. Now, this has been my most prolific tomato this year. We've had quite a few that have ripened, and I've eaten quite a few, and I really love the flavor. It's really grown on me. It's kind of hard to explain. It's got a tomato flavor, but it's just a little bit different. It does not make very good dehydrated tomatoes because they turn this ugly brown color. I was hoping they would stay purple, but they don't. So I'll show you a picture of what the inside of the tomato looks like, because they are vividly purple. A delicious tomato. Now, one of my very favorite tomatoes that I've grown almost every single year is the Jetstar. These are Jetstar tomatoes, and I am going to actually get a decent harvest of Jetstar tomatoes from here. There's one. You can see some of the damage on this. There's been a tomato hornworm that's been eating on this tomato. I'll probably throw this one away, or maybe I'll cut the bad part out. We'll see what it looks like inside. But, well, there's a lot of bad spots. That one may have to go in the garbage. But we've got a few of the Jetstar tomatoes here. So we'll get some of those. The more I look, the more I'm thinking that we'll probably not get the full 20 pounds. I'm hoping we do. This is a beautifully perfect San Marzano. Absolutely delicious. I love these for drying and dehydrating, which we're not going to do this year. I have some left over from last year, and there's just not enough to make paste and to dehydrate them also. Now, this is the second area where I'm growing tomatoes. It's a little overgrown, so it's kind of hard to show you where it is in relation to everything else. This is another Vijayga raised metal bed, and I'll link the raised metal beds that I use down below. I'm actually an affiliate, and if you purchase from my code, you will help my channel a little bit because I get a little bit of a kickback. But growing my tomatoes in the Vijayga raised metal beds has been wonderful. They've done really well in past years, but this is the worst year that I've had. And like I said, it's weather related. So I do have some tomatoes that are starting. This is a mushroom basket. It's not large enough to start ripening, so I don't think those are going to have time. We do have an almost ripe Jetstar down here. You can see that down under there. And we've got a few more. Oh, there's another one that's almost ripe. So the Jetstar is trying to produce. We've got some carbon tomatoes, which is an heirloom tomato. They're not quite ready to harvest yet, and they're not even harvestable size, so I don't know if these are going to ripen at all. But we've got several that are starting to try and form. And then at the end down here, we've got some decent sized Cherokee Purple that are nowhere near harvest size, and they're not ripening. So I don't know within the next 2 weeks, even cutting off the water, if we're going to get a chance to harvest any. But what I can do is take them off the vine just before we have our first frost and let them ripen indoors. And last of all, we have our Sun Gold. Normally my Sun Gold produces really prolifically, but this year it also has not produced that well. So let's get to harvesting and see what we can find. So even though these aren't, exactly the sun sugar that I thought they would be, they are a really cute little tomato. And they do have several that I can harvest. Well, that's less than I hoped for, but at least there's something. And we do have a couple more San Marzanos. This one doesn't have as many cracks as the last one. It's also not as big. This one's shaped a little funny. So this definitely is not 20 pounds. I don't even think it's 10 pounds. So rather than make marinara today like I was hoping, what I think I'm going to end up doing is probably freeze these tomatoes, core them, wash them, and then cut the water to these beds and see how many of them will ripen. The ones that don't ripen I can bring inside and ripen indoors, and then once I have the right amount I can actually make my marinara sauce. Now I really can't complain. The rest of my garden has done beautifully. I've had enough peppers and squash and zucchini, enough garlic, and possibly even sweet potatoes, tomatillos. Just about everything else I've grown has grown beautifully and have given me enough food for the entire year. Now tomatoes are a big part of my diet, but like I said, I went and I bought the canned stuff. They're not as good as homegrown canned tomatoes and canned tomato sauce, but at least I have them for the rest of the year and I don't have to worry about going shopping. It's one of my least favorite things to do is to go shopping, unless it's at a nursery. Then I'd love to go shopping. But let's do a quick run through, show you what the rest of my garden is like, and then we'll finish this video. Now this is my kale and chard bed, and as you can see, they are absolutely gorgeous. I've had plenty of kale and chard for the entire year. We're once again going to have a massive Jerusalem artichoke harvest. They've stopped coming out of the bottom of the bed, but I don't trust that they're running underground elsewhere. And very shortly, they're actually going to start to bloom. I see a few buds at the top of these. We'll harvest these right after the first frost. I've made enough salsa verde for an entire year, and we still got a ton of tomatillos. I'm going to have to donate these to friends. And look at that cute little jumping spider. I don't know if you could see him. He's just right there. This is the first year growing pole beans. They grew beautifully. And I've had enough beans to make, I think it was about 15 pints of dilly beans. And I absolutely love those. Those were delicious. My sweet potatoes are out of control, and I've been feeling down, and I have some pretty big tubers in here. But I'm going to leave them in the ground until, let's see, probably the first week in October. I don't want to leave them past the first frost because I don't think they'll handle that. But we'll be harvesting sweet potatoes here shortly, and I'll bring you along on that journey. We've got a ton of winter squash right here. Even though the vines look a little worse for wear, I'm just going to let them die back a little bit more so that the squash can have a chance to fully ripen. One that didn't do as well are my acorn squash. Now I have a few in here. I have about 6 acorn squash, but I have enough of the rest that'll take me through next year. But the acorn squash, I think they just got too crowded back here. We got a ton of melons. The melon vines are dying for some reason. We have harvested about 5 off of these, and they're delicious. This is the topaz melon. I'm hoping that by leaving these on the vine that they'll get a chance to ripen because we've got several more on there. This Costa Romanesco zucchini vine is going strong still. We've got zucchini down there. I just harvested, I've been actually harvesting one a day. It's still going. So we're just going to let this go until the frost kills it. My pepper bed did amazing. I've harvested enough frozen peppers. Let's see, I froze peppers, I made pepper flakes, I made pepper powder. What else? I've roasted peppers, and I've made hot sauce and salsa, and I've roasted quite a bit of tomatoes and peppers and eaten a lot fresh. So my pepper harvest has done really, really well. This is what's left of my Sugar Rush peach that I'll freeze for next year. Maybe I won't grow the Sugar Rush peach next year. When I need to make more hot sauce, I'll just use the ones that I have frozen. But they've been gorgeous and have done really, really well. I've got some kohlrabi that's sizing up. It's going to be ready. This can take a frost. It can even take a little bit of a freeze. So we're just going to let these go until they're ripe, which might be near the end of October. But we've got cabbage that are sizing up. We harvested all the squash out of this bed except for this little guy over here. It's another spaghetti squash, and it's not quite ripe yet. I've got my purple cabbage in my buckets. Looks like they might ripen and we might get a harvest off those. We've got carrots and beets that are doing really well. I've taken the time to thin these out, and they're actually starting to size up. I guess my problem in all the 30 years that I've gardened and not been able to grow delicious carrots, it's been because I don't thin them enough. So I've really taken the time to thin these, and they're doing a lot better. We've got a few more of the banana peppers. These, there's not enough to make any more banana peppers, and I have actually canned and pickled peppers enough for a year. I have probably 12 quarts of pickled peppers, but we still have some left. My cucumbers, I've made 24 quarts of pickles, and I think there's about 6 quarts of dilled relish, and now this is still full. I've donated probably 4 bags to our local library where they have a veggie drop box. They have outproduced themselves like crazy, and we're still getting cucumbers. I've been harvesting my jalapenos as they turn red. I made a year's supply of sriracha sauce, and I'll probably freeze these for next year's sauce. I'll still grow, get out of here, grasshopper. Ow, it just flew in my face. But I will still grow jalapenos next year, but probably not as many, because I think I'll be able to harvest enough red ones for my sriracha sauce for next year. But these have been absolutely gorgeous. And they've done really, really well. I think I have 2 different varieties here. Got more cabbage that are developing heads. These are heading up a little quicker than the ones down below. And then I just did a video on Chinese mountain yam. We'll come through and harvest these a little bit later, but these have done really well. And then leftover beans. I think the rest of my beans, because I've already harvested and eaten and preserved enough, I'm just going to have to let the rest of them go to seed, and then I'll collect the seed on those and use those to plant for next year. Now, as you can see, I've harvested plenty. I've had a really, really bountiful year. So if I were to base the success of my garden off the success or failure of my tomatoes, I would be a very ungrateful person. I feel like I've been very blessed. I absolutely love to garden. And the thing about gardening that I love the best is there's always next year. Next year we may get a huge harvest of tomatoes, but maybe the peppers won't do so well. You never know. It's all based on weather. It's all based on conditions that we can't control. And all we can do is be grateful for what we have. So I would love to hear what your successes have been, if you've been worried about any of your failures, and if you have, what you think you might be able to do to make them better the next year. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.